Imagine waking up before sunrise every single day, saying a quiet prayer, and then heading out to work in one of the most beautiful countries on earth. Surrounded by ancient churches, Renaissance art, and the smell of fresh espresso on every corner. Now imagine doing all of that while fasting for 30 days, finding a halal butcher in a city of pasta and prosciutto, and raising your children between two completely different worlds. This is the real, everyday life of Muslims in Italy. And it is far more fascinating than most people think. Italy is not a country that people usually connect with Islam. When you think of Italy, you think of the Vatican, the Pope, Christmas markets in Rome, and Sunday Mass. But here is a fact that surprises most people. Italy today is home to more than 2 million Muslims. That is roughly 3 to 4% of the entire population. And that number has been growing steadily for decades. So who are these people? Where do they come from? How do they live? And what does a normal Tuesday look like for a Muslim family in Milan or Rome or Naples? Let us start from the beginning, because the story of Muslims in Italy did not start yesterday. Islam actually has a very old history in Italy. Long before modern immigration, Muslim Arabs ruled the island of Sicily for about 200 years, from the 9th to the 11th century. During that time, they brought new agricultural methods, science, poetry, and architecture to the island. Some historians say that Sicily under Arab rule was one of the most advanced places in Europe. So in a strange way, Islam is not new to Italian soil. It has deep, ancient roots there that most Italians and most Muslims living in Italy today do not even know about. But the modern Muslim community in Italy is a different story. It began to grow mostly in the 1980s and 1990s, when immigrants started arriving from countries like Morocco, Tunisia, Senegal, Egypt, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. They came looking for work. Italy was booming economically, and it needed workers, especially in factories, farms, and the construction sector. Many of these workers were Muslim, and they brought their faith with them. Today, Moroccan-origin Muslims make up the single largest group, followed by Albanians, Bangladeshis, Tunisians, and Senegalese. There are also significant communities from Pakistan, Egypt, and several sub-Saharan African countries. And increasingly, there are Italian-born children and young adults who are second-generation Muslims. They were born in Italy, they speak Italian as their first language, they support Italian football teams, they grew up eating pizza and pasta, but they also pray 5 times a day and identify strongly as Muslim. These young people are redefining what it means to be both Italian and Muslim at the same time. So what does daily life actually look like? For a devout Muslim in Italy, the day begins before most Italians are even awake. Far, the first of the 5 daily prayers, happens before sunrise. So a Muslim man or woman might wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, perform their ablution, which is the ritual washing before prayer, and then pray quietly, either alone at home or, if they are lucky enough to live near a mosque, at the mosque with others. After that, life looks surprisingly normal. They make breakfast, get the kids ready for school, commute to work, meet deadlines, deal with traffic. The rhythms of Italian life are the same for everyone. What is different is the invisible layer of faith running underneath all of it. Finding a mosque, for example, is not as easy as you might think. Italy has a surprisingly small number of official mosques for a country with 2 million Muslims. There are only a handful of large purpose-built mosques in cities like Rome and Milan. In most smaller towns and cities, Muslim communities pray in informal spaces, basements, converted warehouses, or rented rooms that serve as makeshift prayer halls. These are sometimes called improvised mosques by the Italian press, and they have been a source of controversy and debate in Italian politics for years. The question of whether to build more mosques in Italy has been politically sensitive for a long time. Some Italian politicians and local governments have strongly opposed the construction of new mosques, using arguments about zoning laws, noise, or cultural identity. Others have argued that freedom of religion is a constitutional right and that Muslims deserve proper places of worship. This debate continues today, and it affects the daily lives of Muslims across the country in very real ways. Now let us talk about food, because food is central to both Italian culture and Muslim practice. Halal food, which means food that is permissible under Islamic law, requires that meat be slaughtered in a specific way. It also means absolutely no pork and no alcohol. In a country where prosciutto is on nearly every menu, where wine is served at almost every meal, and where pork is mixed into pasta sauces, meatballs, and even seemingly innocent foods, finding halal options requires real effort. In larger Italian cities, halal butcher shops and grocery stores have grown significantly in recent decades. Neighborhoods with large immigrant communities, like the Tor Pignatera area in Rome or the Porta Venezia neighborhood in Milan, now have clusters of halal shops, Moroccan bakeries, Bangladeshi grocery stores, and Arabic-language supermarkets. Walking through these neighborhoods feels like a city within a city. You can hear Arabic, Urdu, Bengali, and Wolof being spoken on the street while espresso machines hiss in the background. But in smaller towns and rural areas, life is harder. Muslims living outside the major cities often have to drive long distances to find halal meat. Some families order online. Others raise their own chickens. And many have learned to navigate Italian menus carefully, choosing fish, vegetables, or cheese-based dishes when eating out. Interestingly, halal food in Italy is not only consumed by Muslims. A growing number of non-Muslim Italians, particularly those concerned about animal welfare, have started buying halal meat because they believe the slaughter method is more humane. This has helped push halal products into mainstream Italian supermarkets, which makes daily life a little easier for Muslim families. Ramadan is perhaps the most dramatic expression of Muslim identity in Italy, and it transforms the rhythm of Muslim life for an entire month. During Ramadan, observant Muslims fast from before sunrise to sunset. No food, no water, no smoking. In the summer months, when Ramadan falls in June or July, that can mean fasting for 16 or even 17 hours in the Italian heat. Imagine working a full shift at a factory or construction site, moving boxes or laying bricks in 35-degree heat, without a single sip of water. Many Italian Muslims do exactly this, year after year. Iftar, the meal that breaks the fast at sunset, becomes a deeply communal event. Families gather, mosques organize collective iftars, and the Muslim neighborhoods of Italian cities come alive at night in a way that is beautiful to witness. Tables are set up on streets and in community centers. Food is shared with neighbors, including non-Muslim Italian neighbors who are often curious and welcoming. Ramadan in Italy, in many communities, has become a small but genuine cultural exchange. Italian employers and schools are increasingly aware of Ramadan, though the level of understanding and accommodation varies enormously. Some workplaces are flexible about break times during Ramadan. Others are not. Some schools teach children about Ramadan as part of multicultural education. Others still struggle with how to include Muslim students in a way that feels respectful rather than isolating. Education is, in fact, one of the biggest areas where the daily reality of Muslim life in Italy becomes visible and sometimes complicated. Italian public schools do not have separate religious education for Muslims. There is a Catholic religion class, which is technically optional but socially difficult to opt out of, especially for younger children who do not want to feel different from their peers. Muslim children often sit through Catholic religious education, or they spend that period in a different room doing other work, which can make them feel separated and singled out. Muslim girls who wear the hijab face additional challenges in Italian schools and in Italian public life more broadly. Unlike France, Italy does ban on religious dress in schools. But social pressure can be significant. Some girls report being stared at, asked intrusive questions, or made to feel like outsiders. Others say their Italian classmates and teachers have been warm and curious. The experience varies enormously depending on the school, the city, and the individual family. For second-generation young Muslims, identity is perhaps the central question of their lives. They are fully Italian in language, culture, and habit. They grew up with the same cartoons, the same football clubs, the same school trips. But they are also Muslim, often deeply so. And Italian society does not always make it easy to be both. Many young Italian Muslims talk about a feeling of being caught between two worlds. Their Italian peers sometimes treat them as foreigners, despite being born in Italy. And when they visit their parents' home countries, they feel like outsiders there too, because they are so thoroughly Italian in their ways. They belong fully to neither world, and yet they are building something entirely new, a distinctly Italian Muslim identity that did not exist a generation ago. Social integration is a two-way process, and it is worth acknowledging that Italian society as a whole has been on a learning curve as well. Italy was historically a country of emigrants, not immigrants. For most of the 20th century, Italians were leaving for America, Australia, or Northern Europe in search of better lives. Immigration was not something Italy had much experience managing. The infrastructure, The legal frameworks, the social attitudes, all of these had to develop quickly and often awkwardly in response to a changing reality. Italian law, for example, does not grant automatic citizenship to children born in Italy to immigrant parents. This is a huge issue for second-generation Muslims. A young person can be born in Rome, grow up in Rome, go to school in Rome, speak only Italian, and still not be an Italian citizen because their parents were not Italian. They must wait until they are 18 to apply, and even then the process is complicated. Many advocates and politicians have been pushing for years to change this law, arguing that it creates a generation of young people who are Italian in every way except on paper. Despite these challenges, there are also countless stories of successful integration, of Muslim Italians who have built businesses, entered politics, become teachers and doctors and artists and athletes, and who move with confidence between their Italian and Muslim identities. There are Muslim members of the Italian Parliament. There are Muslim Italian authors writing in Italian about the experience of growing up between two cultures. There are Muslim chefs who blend Moroccan and Italian flavors in restaurants that have become beloved local institutions. There are Muslim athletes representing Italy in international competitions. These stories rarely make headlines, but they are part of the real, living fabric of Italian society. The relationship between Muslims and the Catholic Church in Italy is also more nuanced than outsiders might expect. Pope Francis has spoken warmly and repeatedly about interfaith dialogue and welcoming immigrants. The Vatican has opened its doors to Muslim delegations, and there have been genuine gestures of solidarity and respect exchanged between the two communities. At the local level, in many Italian towns and cities, Catholic parishes and Muslim community centers have worked together on social projects, food banks, language classes, and community events. Religion, in these cases, becomes a bridge rather than a wall. This does not mean tensions do not exist. They do. There are neighborhoods where relations are difficult. There is prejudice on both sides. There are political movements in Italy that have built their platforms on anti-immigration and anti-Muslim sentiment. There are incidents of discrimination, of mosque applications being denied, of Muslim women being told to remove their hijabs. Italy, like every country, contains multitudes. The beautiful and the ugly sit side by side. But when you look at the day-to-day reality of the 2 million Muslims living in Italy, what you see most clearly is not conflict. What you see is ordinary life. People waking up, going to work, packing school lunches, worrying about rent, celebrating Eid with family, arguing with teenagers about homework, drinking espresso in the morning, calling their mothers on Sunday. Human life, in all its texture and warmth, happening in one of the most extraordinary countries on earth. The story of Muslims in Italy is still being written. The children being raised right now, in apartments in Milan and Rome and Bologna and Palermo, are going to shape what Italy looks like in 20 and 30 years. They will carry both cultures inside them, and they will make something new from both. That is always how cultures evolve. That is always how countries grow. Of people and ideas for thousands of years. Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Normans, Spaniards, and many others have all left their mark on this extraordinary land. Muslims in Italy today are not an exception to Italian history. In many ways, they are a continuation of it. So the next time someone asks you what Muslims in Italy are like, you can tell them this. They are the baker who opens his shop at 5 in the morning in Turin. They are the nurse working the night shift in a Naples hospital. They are the university student in Florence writing her thesis on medieval Arabic influence on Italian literature. They are the father coaching his son's football team on Saturday morning in Bologna. They are the grandmother in Milan who has never learned Italian but who makes the best couscous you have ever tasted. They are, in every sense that matters, part of Italy. If this video gave you a new perspective or taught you something you did not know, please take a second and give it a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are curious about. Share it with a friend who loves learning about different cultures and places. And if you want to keep exploring stories like this one, about how people live, how cultures connect, and how the world really works, then subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. And tell me in the comments, what surprised you most about Muslim life in Italy? I read every single comment, and I would love to hear what you think.